Hello, everyone. This is going to be a quick walkthrough through the couple of the phases of the code related to the scan result policy. We're going to split kind of in three phases. One phase is from the policy creation in the EML in the project repository that's stored as an EML file into the project level approval rules, and then we go from project level approval rules to merge request approval rules. Although I'm going to mention a couple of times the scan execution policy, that's not the scope of this walkthrough. And I'm going to be mainly focused on the back end because the front end basically it's a shared code between scan execution policy and scan result policy. So let's get it going. So here we have, and just another remark, I'm basing this presentation on the latest MRs that are still open. They're not merged. Those MRs, they are extending scan result policy to group level. And so then we are going to show a little bit of project level and group level as well. So here we are on the group level, and when we go to new policy, we have two options. Let's go to scan result policy. And also just a quick recap, we have a rule mode and EML mode. In the rule mode, we can use the couple of components to kind of make the generation of EML file automatically. So here I'm just gonna keep adding a couple of things. So then we go through the first phase. That's we are going out from rule mode into the merge request related to this project. And also another remark for people who are not who haven't been looking to the code too much. There are basically two projects. One project is what we call project, and the other project is what we call security project. And recently, we also allow having a security project linked to a group as well. So those are things to keep in mind here. Hopefully, I'm able to keep the nomenclature consistent across the presentation. So basically, we went through that rule mode component page, and we generated a merge request with a EML change, with a change in AML file. That's exactly the same how it works for scan execution policy. I'm just showing here that up to this point, there is nothing happening in the back end related to the scan result policies. After this merge request is merged, then there is a couple of things that I would like to show you. So let's go back to the editor right now. Yeah, so here, the goal, first point here is this sync scan policy worker. That's the thing that we're looking for. And this worker is called in two places. This is the first place here. This was the part initial, as soon as we had this scan policy code base, the only case that we were running the synchronization worker was whenever we had outdated configurations. This is the scope that we have for this. So we cap it, but right now we just traverse the outdated configurations and we call async worker for sync scan policies worker. But there is another place that calls this worker as well, and that's what I want to show you now. There is a post merge request serves. So what happens here is that it's still in the conception. It's still using the concept of configuration. So we are not going per project, we are going per configuration, similar to the one before here. It reverses the configurations, not the projects. So then if I go here to show, remember we have this MR here. If we get merged, then we would trigger, there's an existing hook for triggering post merge jobs. And that's the case that we want to, as soon as we have a change in the configuration policy, we wanted to be able to execute this code here. That was the initial reason for having this. So that in this case here, we would avoid the 10-minute delay, not the delay, the 10-minute window that this create orchestration policy worker was based upon. So that was just one thing. And then let's look inside the sync scan policy worker. Sync scan policy worker. Yeah, it's just a simple worker that queries the configuration based on the configuration ID and call this method here update policy configuration. That's just a concern. That's again the main code that we are going to look for now. At this moment, update policy configuration deals with scan result policy and scan execution policies. Overall here, there's not too many things happening here. What we are doing is that we are deleting the existing resource for both scan result policy and scan execution policies. And then we update the configuration. So then the next time that the job, the create orchestration policy worker runs, it doesn't include this one anymore. And then we are generating the new resources. This part here from line 14 to line 18, it's going to call process rule service that we're going to look up there. This we are not going to look. This is the one related to scan execution policies. And then we call this sync scan result policy service here, and just has the configuration as a parameter. That's the one that's going to. That's the one that we're going to include everything related to scan result policies. And as I mentioned before, this is based on the MRs that are still open. Things might change a little bit. If they change drastically, I'm happy to record another video. So just a quick recap on this file then. If the configuration is not valid, we just get rid of all the existing resources. And if it's valid, then we are going to call this process rule service for the scan execution related to resources. And we are going to call this other service just for scan result policy. And we still have to update the configuration time, so then it doesn't keep running over and over again. So then let's look inside this sync. Let me just move this zoom thing away. Okay. So sync scan result policy service. Here we are basically doing three things. We still have the feature flag on the recent related to this recent feature, but this is going away after we test it out and the feature flag is removed. So basically here we have, let's say, 4 things happening. First thing is that we delete the existing resources for scan result policy, similar to when it's invalid, as I showed in the previous file. Then the second step is that we traverse the scan result policies and we call this process scan result policy service. We are going to look into it later on. And then after that, we are going to call sync open merge request service and then a sync merge request head pipeline service. So let's focus on those 3 from now on. For the first one, remember we had the scan policy in the YAML file inside the security project. Process scan result policy service is going to get the information from the policy YAML file, and it's going to generate the project level approval rules. So let's look into it. Okay. So here, what we are doing is that we are traversing the scan finding rules, and then we are creating project approval rules. This approval rule creation service is an existing one that's using some other parts of the code base as well. It's not ours. So we are creating the project for project rules for each of the scan finding rules. So here we are going from the YAML file from the repository into the database by creating approval project, the the file, the database name is a little bit different. It's a approval project level, sorry, approval project rules. And it's grouping and it's generating the approval rule based on the YAML file. Let me see here a couple of important things. So we can have multiple rules inside a single policy. So for that, we append a different name because there is a constraint, database constraint, that doesn't allow same name for the policies in this scope. But that's also going to be used in another part of the code. I'm not going to mix it up right now. But for now, we have a name for each of the rules based on the policy. And then we also query user IDs and group IDs. This is like for the approvers information. Okay, so that's what we have here. And then let me just go back there to see something else. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention here. As we enhancing the support from just project level to group level, we need to traverse each of the projects in the group to kind of go through these services. So before they were just on a group project level, now as they are in a group level, we need to traverse each group, each project for the group in order to generate these resources, because those resources are on a project level. Let me go back there. Okay, so then here we query, we get the YAML information, we parse it out, and then we create a project rule for each rule in the YAML file. It's a little bit almost like on a one-to-one, not exactly one-to-one. And then from here, well, let's go back there. So that's the first service. It's just this conversion from YAML file to project level approval rules. Then the second one actually, it's also an existing one. Open it here. Let me show there. Before that, let me just go back here. Okay, so we call this for each project as well. It's still inside of the loop. Each of the 3 services are going to be bound to this scope. So then after we create a project rules for each of the YAML rules, we are going to call this open merge request service here, because we want to get, for each open merge request, we are going to recreate the approval rules on the merge request level. And so then for each open merge request, we are going to traverse as well. And we are going to create merge request rules based on the project level rules. This was an existing services as well that call this method synchronize approval rules from target to project. So that was free for us. For us, we didn't have to implement that. So just remember that now, after running this, we have the YAML rules reflected on the project level, not only on the project level, but also on the merge request level. And if we go back here, we had this third service here also on the project level. Let me open this service here. This calls another worker here is called sync reports to report approval rules work, and gives the head pipeline as a parameter. So what happened is that imagine that we had a scenario that we had there was a pipeline running, and there was no vulnerabilities matching the rules, for example. As we deleted the approval rules on a project and merge request level, now, after regenerating the rules on a project and merge request levels, these rules are going to be requiring approvals because they haven't been checked against the pipeline. So this worker here does exactly that. This worker here, it's going to open here. It includes other code as well, but if we go here in sync scan finding, this code is going to, whenever the pipeline has run, it's going to check the merge request approval rules against the security report. And depends on how, depends on if the security report violates any of the rules, then these rules are going to be dismissed. The way it works, that we can look here. It's here. Yeah. So we contrast the basic report. Sorry, let's start back a little bit. We had the pipeline. That's the pipeline that just ran for this merge request. But we have a base pipeline. The base pipeline is going to be the pipeline that we are targeting to. So the logic here is that we get the base reports related to the base pipeline. We get the report that it's related to the head pipeline. And then we check them against the rules. And then we have this method here, violate policy and violate policy against it. So this is going to check, depends on the scanners, vulnerability states, severity levels, vulnerability allowed, but also contrasting the reports against the base reports. And then for those, if the rule is not applicable to the report, let's say if there was no vulnerability matching the rules for a single rule, then what we're going to do is that we're going to select to set the required approval to 0. So then later on, when we run the merge request widget, the rule is going to be shown as optional because it didn't violate the rules, the current rules for this merge request. And this service here it's the main service that runs whenever we have a new commit in the branch, or we create a new merge request as well. The pipeline runs, and then this service here is going to run as well. Just to mention here also that this service include also coverage rules and license scanning rules that does similar checks to the scan finding. They look in a different variables and reports, but it's the same logic here. They contrast the base pipeline, head pipeline against the existing rules. So let's see what more. Yeah, there's something that I would like to mention as well, is that, let me go to the orchestration now. Policy configuration. Yeah, orchestration policy configuration is like the general model for the policies, but then there is like two concerns here. One is the execution policy, the other one is the scan result policy that I would like to show you now. Yeah, so with the recent changes, there is something that I would like to mention here. One thing is that as we move from project level only to group level, it was required to have an association between the configuration record and the approval rules. That's needed for us to know which one we need to delete and which one we need to update. Because prior to that, we would delete, for example, as soon as we have a new job, we would delete all the previous ones for the whole project. But now, as we can have multiple configurations for the same project, let's say if there is an inheritance from a group, and then you have a couple of policies coming from this group, but then the project also has is associated to another project, security project, then now we would have like two records for the same, two different records for the same project. So then this association was required. So then here we can query them back from the association, from the configuration to the rules, and from the rules to configuration. And this is also reflected here. As soon as we don't have this, as soon as we want to delete it, we delete. As soon as the configuration is deleted, the orchestration project configuration is deleted, then we want to delete those rules as well. So there is a little bit of code here that we need to remove in the future. The reason we cannot remove right now is that because we have orphans. There is a background configuration. Sorry, there's a background job running. That's a background migration that's going to backfill this new column. And then as soon as this is all run, I think that might be by the time that we have the feature flag removal, then we can get rid of this part of the code because we are not going to have any more orphans, and we can just rely on the association itself. So this was the change that has for this file here. Let me see more. So then, yeah, let's just do a quick recap, I think. So we have mainly this sync scan policy worker. That's the entry point for the scan result rules, scan result policies. It's called in two occasions. One is whenever we have this create orchestration policy worker running every 10 minutes or so, and there is an outdated configuration, it's going to call this worker for this. The other condition is that when we have a merge request merged on a configuration project, we also call it for all the configurations related to this configuration file. And then from there, this is just including the concern. Let's go to the concern once again. No, this is not the concern. That's the concern. Concern is going to consider execution policy, that's the middle part here, and it's going to consider result policies in this line 20 here. And once again, let's go to the service. This service is going to look for all projects related to this. If it's just on a project level, it's going to be a single project. If it's a group level, then it's going to query the projects nested under this group. And it's going to be calling 3 services. One service create rules from the YAML file, just project level rules. Second service is going to create the merge request rules based on the project level rules. And third service is going to call the job that's going to sync the new rules, merge request rules, based on the head pipeline for each of the open merge requests. So I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, just feel free to ping me. Thank you very much for watching this.